Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Godel podcast. We're here today with two really exciting guests to talk about a really interesting subject, which is the role of intercultural communication in the workplace, and more interestingly, to delve into some of the stories of the two guests I have today. So, welcome, Dave Roberts. Thanks so much for joining. Absolute pleasure. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Certainly, yeah, it's great to be here. So, I'm Dave Roberts. I'm the Global IT Director at Stantec. We are a top-tier design and delivery business, 32,000 people globally, traded on the New York and Toronto stock exchanges.
Brilliant, thank you, Dave. And I'm very actually honoured to have Dave here today. He was actually ranked top 3 in the CIO 100 and he now sits on the panel for it. So really great to have you here across a range of different industries, I believe, not just your current industry, across financial services as well.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yes.
And second guest, Elena, thank you so much for joining us as well. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your role and who you are?
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. Thanks for your invitation. I'm Elena Korenko, Head of Language Development and Intercultural Communication at Godel. I have a PhD in philology, specializing in English, and have previously worked as an associate professor at a linguistic university.
Amazing. So we're in safe hands today, Elena.
Oh, I hope so.
Perfectly armed for this conversation. Thank you so much both for joining again. So I think before we delve into anything, do you just want to tell us a little bit about your tech journey, Dave, and how it all started for you?
Yeah, crikey, it's been quite a journey. So I think it probably all started when I was at university. So I went to Liverpool John Moores University, did my first degree there, and it was a 4-year course that I was on. And that was doing business information systems. As part of that course, you got to spend a year in industry. And I selected at that point to spend a year in a training enterprise council where I worked on the service desk. So starting out at the sort of most junior level, I guess, and the entry level for IT. And that was great. What a fantastic experience I had. And I knew after that, doing that initial year, that was the career that I wanted to take. I was then very fortunate enough to get a placement with Marconi on their graduate scheme. And that was really, really fantastic for me. And I was a IT technical specialist at the time, so we focused on my technical career, but had an opportunity to also do a postgraduate at the University of Warwick in international technology management. So again, just continuing my education along those lines. I sort of then hit a bit of a crossroads where I could either continue my technical skills and become like a solutions or technical architect, or go into the sort of people management route, and it was the people management route that I selected to do. And having done a number of different technical management roles, I then was promoted to the IT director for the EMEA region with MWH Global. So I was with them, who were subsequently acquired by Stantec, actually. I've also been a CIO or group CIO in a smaller business, but in 2020 I returned to Stantec as the global IT director. So that's been a really interesting career path over the last 25 years or so. It's been fantastic.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that insight, Dave. Just out of interest then on that, what made you go down the people management route rather than the technical route?
I always think it's all about people. So people are what make the difference, and I really enjoy engaging with people and getting the best out of teams and working with various different teams around the world, and some of those cultural differences that I'm sure we'll touch on today. But so that's what's really motivated me, is the working with different teams and working on a diverse portfolio of projects and initiatives. That also really interests me as well.
Amazing, thank you. And Elena, you've been with us since 2007 when we had around 30 employees. Fast forward to today, we've got over 1,600. Can you just tell us a little bit around what that journey's been like for you and how your role's changed really in that time?
Oh, thank you so much for this interesting question. To be honest, it's hard to believe I've been with Godel since 2007. It's like, oh my God, am I that old? No, I'm not. Time flies, doesn't it? Unfortunately, but it's been an amazing journey, to be honest. It's been incredible to see the company's growth and to grow alongside it. When I joined the company, I was the only English teacher. I handled everything from assessing the employees' English levels to running the English classes, setting up the English club sessions, running the workshops, webinars, etc. And it was interesting. I can share some anecdotes with you. I remember inspiring some of our employees to perform a pantomime before Christmas. And they loved it so much that it became a fantastic Godel tradition. So over the years, our employees gave quite a lot of performances in English, you know, Cinderella, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, even Alice in Wonderland, including the famous Natty Patty, and something serious like a scene from Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest. We loved it. We absolutely loved it. It was amazing because we made some changes to the script, including the idioms, the phrasal verbs that we had learned during the classes. It was fun. And it was absolutely amazing, and it is still a cherished memory of how creativity and language came together. So as Godel expanded, so did the complexity of the challenges we faced, particularly with our growing international presence and expanding client base. With the increase in size, the biggest change has been learning to scale our internal processes and teams effectively, ensuring that the Language Development and Intercultural Communication Division could meet the needs of a growing global workforce has been an exciting challenge, and it was rewarding, definitely, at the same time. So the Language Development Division was created in 2018. And I became its head, and then I think in 2021 the name of the division was renamed to Language Division and Intercultural Communication. So right now there are 20 brilliant professional, creative and supportive teachers in my division. So it's definitely, it's been an amazing journey, 7 years of hard work, growth, dedication, patience, passion and excellence. So it's really inspiring to look back on how far we've come and the value we bring together every single day.
And you definitely have the passion to lead those teams, Elena, so they're very lucky to have you.
Thanks.
Just talk to me a little bit more about the pantomime. So what was the thinking behind that, and what were you hoping to achieve by having something as non-work related as a pantomime as part of the sort of programme of education?
It's an interesting question. I think that it's always easier to learn something in a playful manner. So if you enjoy doing something, it's much easier, it's more fun. I love learning myself. I mean, I've never stopped learning. I challenge myself every single day. I'm still learning something new. I'm still learning from you, from my colleagues, from the Godelers, from the people, the passionate, amazing people who surround us. So I thought it would be a lovely idea to learn English, to learn a bit more about English culture, English literature, and the Godelers loved it so much that it became our tradition.
Lovely, thank you, that was an amazing answer. And Dave, I suppose, just to give you the same question, so you've led technology functions all over the world pretty much, so give us a little bit of an example of the locations you've worked in and what's kind of changed over time for you and what you've learned from that.
Wow, okay, so lots has changed over that period of time if I look back to when I first got involved with technology. But to answer the first part of the questions, work with teams all over the world. So currently in my current role at Stantec as the Global IT Director, I have responsibility for teams in Asia Pacific, in the EMEA and LATAM regions. So everything from New Zealand and Australia and Taiwan and India and China, it goes on and on and on. There's a huge long list of. So it's great to be able to work with so many different people and so many different cultures around the world, and I really enjoy that. But if you think about actually, what's changed in that period of time, it's amazing. If I look back, so when I that first job that I was talking about when I first started, I think it was probably when that .com era that we were going through, and it's funny to think that actually I remember people who wanted to access the internet would have to have special software put on their machine. I think it was actually a Netscape Navigator for people who remember that. But a special machine with a modem and to dial up, and it was like you would go onto the internet and think about how that's changed now. It's just embedded into everything we do and on a day-to-day basis. I also remember working in the US. Actually, I was in Denver when the iPhone and the iTouch was actually launched for the first time, And I remember sitting in a restaurant with some colleagues, and I'd gone and purchased one of these devices, for the first time, and taking it out of the box and just being amazed about, wow, look at this, because I think previous to that being sort of the era of having BlackBerries and Nokia phones and things like that. So not to knock those at all, but
they've come a long way.
There was no such there was no such thing as the sort of smartphone as we know it today, and that was an amazing period of time to go through. It was also that time when it seemed like every few months there'd be faster and faster CPUs and higher capacity memory chips, and the computers were just moving at such a rapid rate at that period of time. It was a really quite amazing period to be in. And if you actually think now in 2025, it feels like we're probably going through another one of those sort of modern renaissance periods with AI. It's really exciting, and I'm following AI quite closely, and I talk about it on the Inspiring Tech Leaders podcast and things like that. So it's an amazing time really to think about what AI and how AI is changing the world. I think we're probably going through that inflection point again. If you think about though communication wise and how that's changed with the teams we work with, that's massively changed, probably mostly over the last 5 years. And I think that was from the pandemic period, that completely was a complete game changer, I guess, in some respects. If you remember, people used to think about video conferencing as a room you'd go into, and it had dedicated hardware and equipment. You'd sit down, and it was very much scheduled to go into a room to do a video conference with someone. Whereas now with Teams and Google and all the other technology out there, it's just on demand. So you just speak to people all around the world, all times of the day. The technology enables that great communication. So I think that's been a huge shift and change in how we work on a day-to-day basis. But I think what hasn't changed really, and that's just to Elena's point, is that desire for people to learn more and to explore the capabilities of new technologies and the various different ways of working. I think that's remained throughout. That's remained a constant. So just another really exciting time to be involved in technology at the moment.
Absolutely, agree.
I love that you compared sort of 2025's AI era to how it felt, when you were first opening up that iPhone. I thought that was really, really interesting. I've never thought of it like that. So in terms of what you said, just to circle back with COVID, do you almost think COVID and the pandemic made things easier in terms of because it opened everyone's eyes to how you could do things remotely? And do you think it almost had a positive effect perhaps on the way people communicated?
I'm obviously biased, but yes, I do think it had a massive change to that, and I think it also normalised the hybrid working environment as well, and I think that works really well. Certainly when you're working with teams around the world, you need to have that flexibility to work. You don't necessarily work a 9 to 5 day. You need more flexibility to be able to work with different teams around the world and different time zones, and to be able to accommodate that. And I think that the pandemic really helped to show us that it could be done, and you could actually thrive in that way as well. I think you've got to get the right balance of being able to have FaceTime with people in the offices, but it's also being able to have that flexibility to work from home as well is important. So I think hybrid working is definitely it's here to stay.
It's very much become more accepted and opened those doors for people, and allowed, I suppose, companies as well to access the best talent pools because of it, because they're no longer limited by geographies and things like that. Elena, I'd love to dig in a bit to your expertise here and really, I suppose, give a bit more context on what we're here to talk about today. In your opinion and your expertise, what is the role of intercultural communication in the workplace?
Yeah, thanks a lot for this lovely question. Probably I could start telling you a bit more about my role, just to let you know what it's like.
Yeah,
just because in my role as head of language development and intercultural communication, I oversee 2 areas within the company. So the first one is language development. What does it mean? It means that I manage a team of the language teachers who support the Godel employees in improving their English skills, communication skills, so that they can interact more effectively with their colleagues, UK colleagues, with their clients across the UK. Additionally, we teach our employees other languages to support their integration into a new culture, helping them feel more comfortable in their new environment and empowering them to thrive both professionally and personally. The second field I'm passionate about is intercultural communication. I run various intercultural, cross-cultural sessions, webinars, workshops for both our engagements and clients, fostering a deeper understanding of diverse cultural backgrounds. What do I usually do during the intercultural sessions? I usually provide an overview of the cultural nuances and share practical tips to improve day-to-day communication.
Dave, I'd love to pick your brains here as well around, I suppose, you've got so many geographies that you could cover, but if you could give some insight on how Stantec as a business have really helped to overcome those, maybe strategies you've put in place, and equally if you've got some fun stories to tell along the way.
So no, I absolutely agree with what Elena's just been saying. I think in Stantec there are different cultural approaches to decision making, hierarchy and teamwork, and while some cultures and places around the world do prefer that sort of direct communication, there are others that needs perhaps more contextual conversations. And what I mean by that, it's not always a straight yes or no answer to a question. You need to understand the actual situation. You need to be asking those right questions to ensure you're understanding the response in its entirety. I think if you have to say to someone, is everything okay? Someone might say yes.
Yeah.
But you need to start to dig into that a little bit further and understand how they're actually feeling. How's this particular project working? Are we meeting the deadlines? Is the scope going to be addressed appropriately? Or you got to delve a little bit further sometimes into those questions to actually understand what the true reality is. And I think, we found that actually with the different perspectives, you can actually get more innovative solutions from that, and our teams actually can start to communicate more effectively once they understand the different cultural differences. So building that trust is the critical foundation though, to ensuring that you've got effective teams that really understand each other's communication styles. So while English is spoken widely, it's also not the first language for a lot of our staff and a lot of our colleagues around the world. And while we've got people in the team who are bilingual speakers, and that's always very helpful, I think it's also fantastic the way that technology is moving in the direction of that, and there's now opportunity to use like real-time language translators, and using AI to actually help assist with some of those translation activities as well. So by a mix of both the people and the technology, I think that is where you start to really gain the advantage.
Love that you touched on that, but not to skim past what you said, because you really unpacked some useful stuff there. And one thing that got me was definitely the questioning piece. So as a salesperson, I'm always trying to improve my questioning, right? Because it's how you get the best out of people. So how do you think you manage to improve that questioning over time and really start to understand what questions to ask and when?
Well, I think a lot of it is actually based on relationships. And by fostering that culture of inclusiveness and ensuring that people feel that they are comfortable in an environment where questions can be asked, it does actually help massively in that area. I think where we've started out, and this is looking many years ago, when working with different teams around the world, it was that case of that example where you'd say, is everything okay? And the default answer would always be yes. Because it was perceived that if you say no, that was a bad thing.
Yeah.
And that's by building upon those relationships that you get to understand each other, and actually that trust is built, that people can actually feel more comfortable to be able to directly talk about actually if there is a problem and what those problems may be, and how that's actually a shared problem that you work on together to overcome. So it's not a blame culture. It's not looking to who's to blame for something not either hitting a particular deadline or not being right. It's more about actually more of a collaborative approach of how you work together to solve problems, and that's what most people are in business to do, that, isn't it? We're there solving problems for our clients.
I love that you touched on that as well, because that's definitely how we operate as a business, even though I think potentially the Eastern European culture where Godel operate in is a lot more honest and direct. I think that whole problem shared ideology is definitely something that we carry. So great to know that's something you fostered as well as an environment at Stantec. How do you think then, Dave, that you would create and maintain that kind of team culture even though you're so dispersed all over the world? Like, what are some things you try and do to really make the foundation solid even though you're all working on different timelines and different cultures?
Well, I think it's about celebrating things outside of the workplace as well. So we make an effort to make sure that we do celebrate people's service anniversaries, their birthdays, recognising personal milestones in their own lives. So that becomes more of a family in that respect. I think it's also important that you do think about other people's time zones and where they're located, and sometimes it's not always going to be at a time that is within that 9 to 5 hours, as I spoke about before, but that's okay. But as long as it's not always a one-sided relationship, that there's an element of rotating meetings around. There's also the ability to make sure that if people can't make meetings for whatever reason, and this might be because you've got a large group of people, that you record those meetings, that people then can go back and revisit them. We're using Microsoft Copilot at the moment, so we're always able to produce meeting notes and summaries and the like from those types of meetings. It goes back to that inclusive culture where you make sure that everyone is taken on the journey. No one gets left behind. We're all part of the team, and everyone's voice needs to be heard. Not everyone is an extrovert. Some people don't like talking up in a large group sort of scenarios, and they'd much rather actually have a quieter conversation with you on a one-on-one basis. So you also got to recognise that and understanding the different types of characteristics that you have with people within the team, and knowing how to engage those people and how to get the best out of them as well.
Yeah, I love that you touched on that. So it's not just this country likes to behave in this way, it's actually getting to know your individual teams and understanding their preferences on top of that as well. Absolutely.
I think it's about all voices should be heard and valued.
I think, I would agree with Dave. And I think that both should be taken into consideration, the individual traits, the personality types, plus the cultural differences, because I think that a lot of people work in global settings while viewing everything from their own cultural perspectives, assuming that all differences, controversy and misunderstanding are rooted in personality. Yes, on the one hand, we're all different, we're all unique, we're individuals. Yes, when you work with people from other cultures, you shouldn't make assumptions about individual traits based on where a person comes from. But this doesn't mean that learning about cultural context is unnecessary. If your business success relies on your ability to work successfully with people from all over the world, from different countries, you should have an appreciation for cultural differences as well as respect for individual differences. Both are essential. And I totally agree with Dave. At the end of the day, everything is about people. Trust people. How to build up a good rapport with them. And definitely, it's not easy. Mm-hmm. It's, just sometimes it's hard work. And I think that when we talk about intercultural communication, the most important concepts are about high context cultures, low context cultures. And understanding these can help us navigate communication styles in the global workplace. I love talking about low context cultures and high context cultures. Sorry, I can talk about it for hours. So in a low context culture, I don't know whether you've noticed it, Dave. Yeah, have you noticed any differences in communication styles when you deal with somebody from a low context culture? Where you've mentioned it, where the communication style is direct. Yeah. So in a low context culture, we consider we have a low level of shared reference points, rules, what people do, roles, responsibilities, what needs to happen next. We assume we don't have the same information, we don't have the same context. So that's why we think that the best communication is explicit, simple, and clear. What does it mean? It means that some people are too straight to the point, too straightforward, and it can be perceived differently in different cultures. Instead of being straight, we can be perceived as rude. And I've got lots of examples because obviously Eastern European employees are considered to be quite direct, and there can be some misunderstanding between the cultures. I remember when I was in London, and one of the UK colleagues was a bit upset when she got an email from the employee who was based in Eastern Europe. It was too direct, without any coffee messages. Hi, Mary, for example. Hi, Mary, I'm going to London next week. I need, and giving all the bullet points. And she was like, excuse me, who is the boss? So yeah, this directness and straightforwardness can be misinterpreted in different cultures. So that's why I think it's vitally important for the team members to know that nobody wants to offend anyone, nobody wants to be rude. Just people are different and we're brought up differently. Some people are brought up to be low context, the others are brought up to be high context. And it's interesting, did you know that, do you know what the lowest context culture
No, please share.
is?
Please share.
Any ideas, Dave?
I could maybe say.
Could you
something.
guess?
Well, it's interesting actually, because in our business, you may say that those low context cultures, maybe some of the European countries like the Netherlands, for example,
Yes.
comes up. And the thing is, I was across the Netherlands last week, and our Dutch colleagues are great. I absolutely love working with them.
Yeah.
And I think the great thing about the way that we work is that people actually recognise that, and they recognise that themselves, and try to calibrate the way that they interact with people outside the Netherlands as well. So I think that's what's creating a really great culture within the business, is that people recognise that how they work, but also recognise how other cultures work as well, and are very cognizant of that, which I think is really helpful. But so that was the one I probably picked.
Amazing. You're right, actually. Both the lowest context culture in the world is the United States.
Right. Okay.
So Americans are thought of as prone to explicit and direct communication. The blunter, the better. But you're absolutely right. The United States, followed by Canada, Australia, the Netherlands, Germany, Eastern Europe. And I would say that the UK is in the middle. And obviously a lot of Asian countries, they belong to a high context culture. And in a high context culture, much of the communication is implicit. It's like everything is in the air. I have to read some cues, the background, the tone, your body language is very important. Even the meaning of silence does play a crucial role. Yeah, it's so interesting. I remember having a conversation with one of the UK colleagues who used to work in Japan, and he said to me, "Oh, Elena, it was a real nightmare to understand them from the very beginning. They would be quiet." And he didn't know, what does it mean? Are you bored? Are you disengaged?
Wow.
What does it mean? But they just needed to take some time to reflect on everything that has been said, to read the room, to read some non-verbal cues, digest all the information, and then give the answer. It's interesting how it works in different cultures. And I remember reading a lovely example about parenting. A Nigerian woman was sharing her story about her daughter, and it's interesting actually. She says that when we have some people over for dinner, and if my daughter comes over to me and says, "Mom, could I take another sweet, please?" Dave, what do you think? What will she say in a high context culture? She is from Nigeria.
Probably no.
It's in a low context culture. The answer would be no in a low context culture, direct and explicit. But in a high context culture, you say one thing, mean another thing. Which means that she would give a look to her daughter, she would say, "Yes, certainly you can." But the look says, "Do not dare to take another sweet, you've had enough." So it does
a lot of reading between the lines then.
Oh, but it's so hard, Rosie. It's so hard to read between the lines. The employees from Eastern Europe can't do this sometimes. And even, they find it harder to work with the British colleagues rather than with the American colleagues. Because the American colleagues are quite straight to the point, straightforward, direct. It's easier to understand what they mean. Whereas when they work with the UK colleagues, sometimes they ask me, Elena, what does it mean? Does it mean yes or no? Especially when we talk about giving some feedback. They can't read the feedback because sometimes, yourself, I think that Americans and British colleagues, they try to be very polite, not that straightforward, and even if something is wrong, it's between the lines.
Yeah, I think,
and you can't read it.
I think we all, as Brits, I think we like to take the sandwich approach, don't we? So something nice followed by a bit of criticism, followed by something nice again. And I remember having an interaction with one of our technical pre-sales team who's from Eastern Europe. And she said, Rosie, just tell me the negative thing. You don't need to. I know I'm good at my job. You don't need that. Which I loved. I thought that was amazing. And I was like, noted. I will make sure next time I get rid of all that and just tell you what I need changing.
Because in Eastern European cultures, it's vitally important to get some constructive feedback. And we appreciate it so much. We're grateful for this feedback because we want to grow professionally, personally. And if we get some constructive feedback, for example, this area could be, improved, and this area could be improved, then we know what to do. Otherwise, if the feedback isn't that constructive, we don't know what to improve. Although we realize, and we've always been brought up in such an environment, that there's always room for improvement.
Have you ever had a situation where you've had a real kind of misunderstanding, and what kind of things as a leader do you do to kind of prevent those and remedy those, I suppose?
Thanks a lot for this fantastic question. Yes, certainly when we talk about different cultures, misunderstandings, misinterpretations, and even conflicts can arise if cultural differences aren't acknowledged or managed properly. And there have been so many examples, to be honest. I remember during one of the meetings, the UK colleagues were saying to our team, thank you so much for your hard work, for all the contribution. You've been a part of furniture. And there was silence. The guys thought, oh my God, they thought that there was some negative connotation and they misinterpreted it. Thank God the UK colleagues could see this and explain that it was something positive. A part of furniture means being a part of the team, a part of the family, and they gave this reassurance to our guys. So there can be different misunderstandings. I think language barriers or non-verbal misunderstandings, language barriers definitely, different accents, different slang words, different idiomatic expressions, and it's like, oh my God, what does it mean? And there were so many of them. At the same time, the speed, the fluency, I always ask our UK colleagues, please could you slow down, because sometimes the non-native speakers of English don't want to interrupt their UK colleagues, or they feel shy or reserved or embarrassed to ask the question, could you repeat again please? Could you say it again? Could you paraphrase? So that's why I think all these things should be taken into consideration. Even from the language aspect, there are so many examples, there are so many phrases that could be perceived differently in different cultures. For example, how are you, Rosie? And if you say not too bad, some cultures could say, oh my God, could think, oh, she's still bad. Something is wrong with Rosie, she's still bad. So I think it's fascinating, it's interesting to observe all these differences, cultural differences, language differences, and even the body language can be different. In different cultures, gestures, facial expressions can vary greatly between cultures. Sometimes as simple as a hand gesture could have a completely different meaning, or sometimes in some cultures, in Asian cultures, I don't know, Dave, have you noticed, people don't smile so much? In Eastern Europe, the same. They don't smile so much. I remember, it's a true story actually, I remember going to the UK for the first time. I was studying in the UK. When I was back home, after my studies, do you know what my sister asked me when she saw me at the airport? The first question was not like, how are you? How was your flight? She was asking, Elena, why are you smiling? Is everything okay with you, And I was so happy, I was smiling. So it's different, it can be perceived so differently. In many Western cultures, making eye contact is seen as a sign of confidence and attentiveness. But in some Asian cultures, it can be perceived as rude, even confrontational. So it's so different. If you don't know about it, you can misinterpret something, even just these non-verbal cues. Small talk is another thing. Do you like small talk, Dave?
What a question.
A direct question. Do you like small talk?
I love it.
In British culture, small talk is a part of culture. Whereas in some cultures, you don't need any small talk. It's like straight to the point, in Germany, in the Netherlands. Like, hi, give me the task. I want to do the task. That's it. No small talk.
I sometimes find myself falling into that
Me too.
that trap as well. You've got to remember, actually, you've got this.
I don't think we do love it. I think we just feel like we have to do it.
Obligated.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, with some of the things you were saying there in terms of localized, sayings and those things that are very relevant to a particular geography or country and things like that. And it's amazing actually, because you find as you work closer in the teams that people in different locations start to pick up on that and start using it themselves. And even I fall into that trap and start. You can talk about even differences between vacation and holiday. Holiday is like a public holiday. It's like be it Christmas or something like that. That type of holiday is how it's perceived. Vacation is that the time away. So getting those two things mixed up, and sometimes you start to interchange them and things like that. But just other things, it's quite funny when you hear someone else in a different part of the world talking about it's raining cats and dogs.
Yes.
People are like, what?
Have you heard?
What does that mean?
Brass monkeys.
Yeah.
It's brass monkeys here in Manchester, and it's like, oh my God, Elena, what does it mean? Brass monkeys. What is it?
I don't even know what that means.
Oh, really?
It's cold.
Freezing cold.
I'm a southerner, there we go, that's why. Amazing, thank you so much.
There is another phrase, born in the oven, and one of the UK colleagues said to one of our ADs, so take care of yourself, and you're born in the oven. She was shocked. Where is the oven? Where is the bun? So
I love that.
So many funny stories.
Thanks so much for that. That's amazing. I suppose we've touched on it briefly, but Dave, quite a big question. What do you think the impact has been on different cultures and kind of navigating authority and hierarchy? Because there's definitely different attitudes to what those roles look like, and I'm quite interested to see how that's impacted you in your career and the way you've led, essentially.
Yeah, I think it's often more apparent at the beginning and the start of a relationship, be that with a new member of the team coming in, or if you're in a new organisation with a new team, and it's about building trust, and that foundation of trust is really important. So it can be difficult to begin with. I think as you build a rapport with your team, I think it becomes a lot easier. And I think you then, you can have those honest conversations with people without seeming threatening or criticising. To Elena's point, so I think it's all about building trust over time. I think that's the most critical thing. And I love working with the teams around the world, and there's different cultures, but I think we all tend to gravitate to the same place and the same point because of the multicultural environments that we're working in. I think that's where you really start to get the benefits from working as a global team.
Totally agree with Dave. I love working in the intercultural multinational company because I think that I can learn so much about the cultures, about different communication styles, different cultures, different values, traditions, and I think that it's vitally important to make a conscious decision to accept and respect cultural differences. It's not only about being aware of the cultural differences, but also taking action, doing something. When I run my intercultural sessions, I always ask the employees from Eastern Europe, please be more polite, be less direct, less straightforward, because some of the colleagues can get offended or can think you're rude. And when I talk with the UK colleagues, I ask them to be vice versa, more direct, more straightforward, straight to the point, because I think it's amazing when people all over the world can interact, can build up trust, there's good rapport, and they can collaborate together and interact effectively. And I think that there are so many advantages. I'm not talking only about the language, but about the culture or cultures.
Thank you for sharing that. And just on that, that's a really interesting point actually. Dave, is there anything you do? So Elena's just given an idea there of kind of what she does to adapt when she's leading those teams. You also lead a big group of people. Is there anything you do to adapt yourself or to kind of brief people when you're working with intercultural teams?
I think the way I approach it is trying to understand the perspective of the different groups. And I said the team I've got in Latin America very different to perhaps the team I have in Asia Pacific and how they operate. So it's just knowing the individuals. I think it comes back to that personal relationship for me. That's what I think really I think helps to create successful teams, is by building up that relationship within the group. So I always work on building those relationships and making sure I have good trust, and a two-way trust as well between all parties. And I think that's what works really well. And if people feel respected, then that's often reflected. Often as a leader, I think you lead by example for people as well. So your behaviours and your attitude and how you work is often reflected by the others within your team as well.
Yeah, and they're wanting an ability to voice their opinions. It depends on how you are, right? Is that essentially what you're saying?
Well, absolutely. As I said before, I think all voices are valued and need to be heard, and that's what makes everyone's contribution to the team so important. So.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and opinions, guys. It's been really, really useful and definitely interesting for me. I know I'm always picking Elena's brain about different things, just not because it's particularly relevant to my role, but just because I find it so fascinating. So thank you so much both. Always like to end this on a really light note. So would you mind both sharing with me, perhaps Dave first, where in the world you've travelled to that's given you the best food opportunities?
So many places. Lots to pick from, and I wouldn't want to discount any others. But I think the one my favourite place to be is probably India, to be fair, because I love Indian food, and there's nowhere better to get Indian food than being in India. So fantastic. Yeah.
And UK Indian food is very different to India Indian food, right?
Both good, but being in India is really great.
Amazing. And Elena, please share your experience.
Well, this is a lovely, fantastic question, but very hard for me to answer, to be honest. Because if I could travel and taste food from around the world, I'd say it would be hard to choose just one. To be honest, I love food, I love cooking, I love different cuisines, Eastern European cuisine, Italian, Spanish, British, Irish, Chinese. So I just love cooking different dishes, beef casserole, Rosie knows.
British.
Beef casserole, lasagna, bolognese, so that's why I can't pick up one country. Sorry about this.
Amazing. No, thank you so much, guys, for joining. It's been lovely.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thanks.